Yes, the crazy ladies with the crazy talk are back,
Yep, yep.
and
And
we
so,
are talking today about that was my
polarities. Yeah, yeah, drums.
polarity.
um,
Um,
we're talking about polarities. What's polarities?
and that's it. That's it. Topic.
We're done. Okay.
Polarities.
Yeah.
So we as humans, I feel like a lot of the time look at life either black or white, light, darkness, whatever you want to call it, good, bad,
Yep.
right? What else?
Masculine, feminine.
Masculine, feminine,
Yep.
absolutely. Sweet,
Um,
sour,
yep. Yep. Good and bad. We can extend on it more, like um,
right or wrong.
right or wrong. Right or wrong. Basically anything that has like an extreme from one end to another, like peace, war,
Mm-hmm.
um, good and bad. Let's see. There's just so many divides. It ends up creating divide. It all is divide. I feel like polarity creates reality in our world in a way. Because if
Mm-hmm.
we didn't have the polarities, there wouldn't be any experience. We didn't have, imagine if we were all like one sex, you know, we wouldn't have as much issues. Not that we won't. We'll find out
Mm-hmm.
ways, I'm sure. But because we do, we have so many issues, right? Throughout history, sex issues have been constantly changing, but constantly there. Or the concepts of peace and war, whatnot. Some peaceful or even just like mindset of one, soul conscious idea of like, I'm more, or what's the word, like self-absorbed versus socially, culturally, community absorbed.
Oriented. Yep.
um they're all gonna lay us in different ranges. It's not going to be one end to the other necessarily. It could be so much in the middle. But polarities basically make the world run, in my opinion. If we didn't have it, things would be so, in a way, boring. Things would just happen and we wouldn't care. It just would just be. But because we have it, we have to adjust to individually or as a group what we can accept, what is okay, what's not. Sometimes we come up with good ideas, sometimes we don't. um yeah, so polarities is important to talk about, I think, because if we don't, I mean, everything that we have problems with our relationships, with in our communities, a lot of it has to do with figuring out all the different perspectives, which creates the polarities of how to deal with things. And I don't know. Do you think it's important to understand the concept of polarizing?
I think it's important to understand because partially what I believe we're here to experience and learn is that not everything is that categorically, let's say, on one side or the other. Right? I feel like we're here to learn how to actually understand that everything is truly kind of in the middle. I don't know how does that
Well,
make
we should aim to be. I
well,
don't know if
aim,
it
yeah.
is. Yeah, we
Yeah.
aim to be. It's called balance, right? And harmony. We can
Mm-hmm.
find it. Well, we can find harmony in balance, I'll say. um, like using the example of, say, um, good and bad. Good and bad, I think Sophia and I both agree, it doesn't actually exist, but as humans, we've created it to help for many reasons, including like minimizing chaos. You don't
Mm-hmm.
end up doing things like killing each other as much, which we still do. But, I think good and bad helps organize us to be kinder as a community. Um, but at the same time, in nature, do you really ever see good and bad? There's not a definition there. But because we align with it so much in our conscious thinking, we create things like religion that
Mm-hmm.
monitors what we do. I mean, it has good intentions for the most part, I would presume, like you want to be good. I think in all cultures you want to be good, whatever good is defined in your culture and your religion, what your spirituality. There is some moral concepts attached to it too, but in the end, we have cycles of what we do, and in nature, I would say there is no real good and bad. You see nature do its thing. A lot of things, if we did it to each other, it would be considered completely bad. But when we see nature do it, it's perfectly natural, and it actually has to be sometimes. So, for instance, like sharks being the highest on their food chain have to eat
Mm-hmm.
their prey. It's their nature. But
That's how they survive.
obviously,
Yeah.
yeah. And then people though will say, "Well, that's animals. We're not animals." But whatever you want to define that as, whether we are associated in any conscious level to them or not, they're still understanding that we all in the end decide what we consider good and what's bad.
It's like two sides of the same coin, right? It depends on if you flip a coin, which side will it land on? Because again, my what I believe is right with all my heart, you're gonna be like, nah.
Not necessarily, right, exactly. Or
That's
even in our different timelines of ourselves, we might see it completely different. you
also
know
true. Also, do
yeah.
you remember anything within your lifetime when you were thinking one way, but now your view is completely different about something?
I know I have million things. I just can't think of one in the moment with the spotlight on it. But um, I feel like, though, with my way of processing, I had this way of thinking that once you figure out a truth,
Mm-hmm.
it's time to start over almost. It's like, I know this for a fact. There's no way that it's not true in the moment. It could be completely 100, 200% true, but then that's time to start shifting your perception and say, okay, it's true, but there's exceptions. There's true, but this, and something more to explore and to expand on. So I think it's hard for me to pinpoint any particular way of thinking because I just kind of go like that all the way around. And anytime people say, oh, I know the truth of the matter, my first thought is like, maybe, for you, for the moment, sure. I mean, the whole big thing like Pluto, for instance, labeling it. How do you label Pluto? It's a planet, it's not a planet. It's a planet, it's not a planet. And the whole community of society believed it when it's chosen, by the scientists. Okay, it is. Okay, great. Yay, it is. Now it's not. Oh, okay, it's not. It kind of goes that way. I see a lot as well. Like, if we have preconceptions of what good and bad should be, and we go with what we think would work for everyone. But like everything else, including our health and everything, it's not a one size fit all.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it could be completely wrong for someone else, something that should be right by the book, right? So, I don't know. Do you have an example?
I tried to think about it. I probably have some controversial ones, so I'd rather not talk about them. Uh,
Oh, come on. This is the place to do it.
well, I used to be very religious at one point. So while I was religious, my belief was that this was the right way and the only way, right?
Yeah.
And to the point where I would start, I would be judgmental towards those that are not, right, of the same faith or whatnot. So, I mean, now I definitely have a completely different view on things. I also find it interesting when people, because I had the same, it's like we go through cycles, right? As you mentioned, I had at some point believed that I was like, I want to find the truth. I want to find the whole truth, and I'm going to search for it. But in reality, there is no truth. Because even with history, if you see, it depends on who's talking about it, right?
Context
So,
matters.
right, if you take World War II, I grew up in Russia, right? Talk to Russians, and they'll be like, "Oh my God, we won," and the United States is like, "Well, we're the ones who won," right? And in truth, why does it matter who one, right? But it matters on a different level. It matters on a level of using this as a way of making ourselves feel better, right? And it's, I feel like now we're kind of crossing into judgment a
Mhm.
little bit, right? What, because why do we do that? Well, we're the best based on what, right? So I think it's very healthy to think that well about yourself, right? But it's one thing thinking well about yourself. Another thing is putting others down in order to feel good about yourself.
Self-identity, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not just an individual level at this point. It's like a country level, or whatnot. Like you can choose to align with the team, even sports, right? You can align with a certain team. We'll just say you see the polarities automatically when you talk about team sports, especially those really popular ones like soccer and football and all that, baseball.
Baseball. Yep.
I live in New England, so we're very right where I am. I'm like for baseball, we're just split down the line of Yankees and Red Sox. So we have an interesting way to deal with that. But if you go anywhere close to New York, closer to Boston,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's no way the other two would kind of be like, "Why are you here? You don't belong here." It becomes kind of a clicky thing, and yet it's great to identify yourself with a larger group. I think that's part of it. It's like it builds a community sense, which is also beautiful in its own way. A sense of traditions comes out of it and stuff. But at the same time, it becomes those dividing lines too. It's like, where
Mm-hmm.
is the divide here that, okay, it's okay to be a different team. Of course, sports is, not as big a deal when it comes to like, um, say countries in the dividing line of where they place themselves in what side is against who, say for wartime and things like that, which is more serious. But at the same time, we get the idea of propaganda that is focused on one side and say, oh, we're much better because we do this. But it's a perception. It's also trying to unite ourselves so that we fight for the same cause or seemingly, So it makes sense to a degree, but in the end, when you look in the bigger picture, there is nothing. They're not as bad as you think, and we're not as good as we think. And that's in the individual as well as like a big scale like that too. So of course, this might bring up a lot of interesting conversations, I would think, with regards to that, because how much do we really know when we've learned that we don't necessarily trust what we see in the media or social media or anything nowadays, because there's so many perspectives, so many
Mm-hmm.
things, and so much censorship, even though we're supposed to be very free and very open, but there's so much going on. But when you try to see the patterns of things, look further out, look from a different side of perspective, we're all very much the same. I remember I just had a recent conversation with a woman from China. She was born and bred there, but she's American now. And we kind of had a perception of, she had a perception coming here that we're so much more free and so much more, open about things. But as she starts living here, she also saw, like, I'm actually really surprised by certain things that you guys do that really is like, it might not be outwardly
Mm-hmm.
a certain way, but we do cloud things. We do tend to lean towards um, I guess it comes to one of those scenarios where we're expecting the experts to tell us all we need to know, and we rely on that, and then we forget that there's more to it, and then that becomes a different version. They're more outwardly propaganda that she knows, everybody knows everything there is media. The media is all controlled by the government, but here it's a lot more subtle. I don't know if that makes it good or worse or better, but it is part of that polarizing way,
Yeah.
and trying to find, now that we're more aware of it because of internet globally and whatnot, and just being able to travel from different countries so much easier, you get to see, you get to experience we get to see differently, and we can see how we might need to balance things out more. And yeah, it's very interesting.
So let me ask you, how do we balance things out?
Well, first, I think it's just questioning, looking at patterns we see, what we believe we have truths on,
Mm-hmm.
just questioning it more. Is like, is there more to it? You know, is there more to this, what we think is truth, or what we're trying so hard to figure out as truths? It could be, I think having forums like this is good, because then we talk about what we see and what we might presume. But internally, we need to figure out a way to really recognize that we might start judging something, and feeling like once we know that there's something there, there's nothing else that could be true but that truth. That's when we need to readdress that perception of truth there. And then just by doing that, you start to, if you're picturing a swing of a pendulum from one to the other, it'll start to like move a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's my opinion. What do you think?
Ooh,
What would
okay.
you do?
Well, I always ask myself, how does any information that comes, right? Let's say there's so many things going around.
It's hard to pinpoint.
It's but how does this help me in this lifetime? The knowledge or even the
Mm.
belief or thinking about it, how does this help me in this lifetime? And most of the time, it's irrelevant to my lifetime. Right? It's irrelevant to me and I know people might argue on the bigger scale. I'm gonna use a big one. You ready? Who is in the office, Republicans or Democrats? It's because a lot of people have a lot of opinion about it, but in truth, I don't think it matters.
I don't think it matters.
I
I
don't think it
think they're
matters,
all in the same.
right? Because I truly believe that neither side really cares about. That's my belief. Really cares about the people. They care about being in power. They care about their plans to go through whatever it is, right? I'm not into conspiracy theories, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot of shady stuff going on, but I also don't care, right? So the way I balance it out, I'm like, well, and I think it was Louise Hay who said it. And if you don't know who Louise Hay is, I highly recommend even Googling her or looking up her videos on YouTube. I guess you would call her, I would say, an inspirational speaker. Would that be it? She did a lot of amazing things, wrote a lot of amazing books as well. So Louise Hay, and I'm going to butcher her wording, but in one of her trying to remember, it was I was listening to it's 101 something, forgot what the word is, but this is what she talked about it. She said that, well, it truly does not matter who wins as long as our view or belief is that I'm going to have it up to universe, and whoever wins is going to be for the betterment of our country, the betterment of whatever you want to think, my state, my house, my personal, right, whatever it is that you want to decide, because in truth we don't know what's right or wrong, and we don't know why things are happening the way they're happening, and maybe certain things need to happen this way, whereas you're like, oh my god, this is really bad, right? But I need to happen this way in order for everything to change into something better. So her view was, not thinking or putting out a thought of, I want only this person to win, but to be more broader and say, right, this is the pendulum, right? We're putting it into the middle, right? Rather than one swing or the other, we're putting in the middle that whoever is for the betterment of whatever it is, our country, my state, my little town or big city, right? Whatever is for the betterment, or whoever is for the betterment of whatever is around me. my reality. And I feel like that's how we put it in the middle. I need to find what the way she said it, because now it's gonna bug me. Because the way she said it was like right on point.
Mm.
Affirmations. That was 101 affirmations. That's what it was.
Wonderful. Yeah, yeah. I agree. It's more about, I think, the party system, whether it's our party system or another country's party system, a lot of it is meant, originally might have meant to help with having, to minimize the idea of like a monopoly of concepts and ideas and whatnot. But in the end, nowadays, I feel like we need to evolve from it. I think the old systems, even though if it might have been valid and true, we'll say, for the time being that was needed, maybe not, we don't know, because we're not part of that process. Most of us aren't part of that process to be part of that level of government. We can't really say. But at the same time, overall, I see as a pattern that there's so much divisiveness that's not needed at the same time. And it's not because they're dividing on the issues. That happens as well. But it comes down to the line of, now we're identifying with these teams that we think have to align a certain way, which they may or may not. And it turns out most of the time they don't even align differently enough for the differences. So then the focus gets shifted, and I feel like that happens more. It's like our focus on the issues isn't as focused, because we're focusing now on the people that may or may not say that they're aligned a certain way with it. And that's the politics side. That's the side that we know of. And we can't argue that people don't just say things just to say things to be more popular in that way, get the votes, and they may or may not do what they say after they get voted in. So it becomes a distraction. I think nowadays, if we end up having a new conversation of how we evolve as cultures and government, maybe eventually we won't even have a government. We'll be much more unified in the way of things, right? Wouldn't that be interesting to think about? Not having an overhead above the consciousness of everyone. We just balance each other out, just knowing how to put our voice out there and have a way of finding it a different way. I know it's people have tried different things. They talk about socialism, and then socialism is awful. And, yeah, we tried all different things, but now we're so much more universal in our consciousness level. We're connected so much more. Anything from the old ways might not be valid in the newer ways. So I just stay curious. My biggest thing is just be curious and keep trying to find ways to, I guess the best way I would say is try to look away from the extremes. Any extreme. You can say, oh, I only just want to be good, but you can be too good, right? You can be like always trying to do the good things, but end up hurting people because of it. We get too extreme in any way, being all positive. In our spiritual world here, in our community, there's a lot of was it toxic positivity is one of the things that people talk about. Yeah. It's like, how can you be positive and toxic at the same time? Well, that's because we're imbalanced. One of the things I do personally when I offer help to others, I do energy work, and I'm always helping people balance their chakras, their meridians and things, because when we're off-centered with any of it, we start acting a certain way. We start feeling a certain way. We don't feel good. And then it grows into something called dis-ease. And it grows from there. And it can happen individually, and it can happen as a group. So I just think we need to find balance in some way or another, and talking about it with others after we realize something, and then stop allowing the judgment to happen, because that's another thing that might happen is like, oh, I know this truth, and you announce this truth to the world, and then you grow from it and you realize that's not the whole truth, and you say it, and then people are like, oh, you're disingenuine because you said this was truth and now you're not. It's like, no, that's not how it works. I think we need to allow the growth. We need to allow to believe one thing fully at one moment, and then allow it for it to adjust and change as need be too. So
Mhm. Well,
I think
because
that's
we adjust and change throughout our lives as well, and that's why I asked you what is one belief that you have that you change now, because as we grow, right, we take on the beliefs of our parents.
yeah.
Would be beliefs of our parents. If you're religious, it will be the beliefs of the religion, of the society that you live in, so on and so forth. But as you grow older, you start seeing things from a different perspective.
Ooh,
So
I came up with
yeah,
one.
yeah,
Talking about religion stuff.
yeah.
I grew up in a Catholic school, but I was never baptized. My parents didn't find the need to baptize. In fact, I thought it was a beautiful thing when my dad, because let's see, I don't know how old I was, but I came up to him one day and I was like, "Hey, Dad, how come I'm not baptized? Should I be baptized too, like everyone else?" Because I noticed I every month we'd go to the church to do a First Friday mass, and I'm always sitting back waiting for everybody to do their communion, and I can't because I'm not baptized. So I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." It never made me feel bad. I was fine with it, but I just thought I'd ask anyway. And he had the best answer to me. He's like, "Oh, I brought you to that school for the values, but not the religion." And I was like, "Oh, I don't have to follow their way of thinking. I
Mhm.
didn't have to follow the group think.
Yeah.
I can be my own way with it." And anyway, religion wise, it to me it's spirituality. I've kind of adjusted in my spirituality up and down. Talking about balance. First
Mhm.
I was believing in everything Christian because that's what I was raised. And then I went to the other extreme of like, you know what? I think I'm atheist. I don't believe, I'd rather believe that once we have finished our life, we're just done. That's it. It makes it so much easier. It's just like you do it as well as you can and then it's done. Great. But then as time goes on, I'm like, that's just, it's not truth for me. There's just no way. There's too much coincidences out there. There's too much things out there that proves to me otherwise in
Mhm.
my perception. So I just can't. I can't go there. So that's how I swing back. But I wouldn't swing back all the way to Christianity because, in fact, I went to a time where I would go to church with friends for holidays and I would just like, I just want to leave because I couldn't stand being in that environment of them telling us what we need to believe. Even though it was in a festive environment and everything, I saw there was something that didn't ring true, we'll say, for me.
Mhm.
So through time, I had to adjust that. Now I can go fine, it won't bother me. But there was a reason why it bothered me and it needed to be addressed. And it's okay. You don't have to, again, it's finding that truth within yourself in the moment, fully believing it, whatever you need to, and then adjust it and find that balance for yourself, whatever it means. It could mean you stick with a religion. It could mean you don't. It could be become a complete atheist. It's totally fine. And that's what people need to understand, that all of that is fine. And finding the balance within yourself and within yourself, that's the thing. It's really just like, anyway.
It's whatever brings
Yeah.
you joy, right?
Uh,
But again, we're very
well,
much, as humans, we're very much depend, right, on what others think of us.
mm,
Right. So a lot of the times people will stay where they are and not change their belief system because, well, my parents believe it this way and I think I should believe it as well. Or I'm being told that I should believe this. And I just, maybe you need to hear this, that it is okay that you believe differently from everyone else that you know.
yeah.
Right. As long as you're
And
not doing physical harm to anyone. Let me just say that.
exactly.
Because I
But
know
it's not
people.
easy, right? You grow with a culture in a specific culture, a specific environment, and you have certain specific patterns you've been used to in your life, and it's not easy to pull away from. Even if you do find a truth that's outside of the box, we'll say, and you want to believe it, it's not easy to do that. It's very, you have to be really brave, to be honest, to recognize that truth within yourself and then be able to pull yourself out of the norm of the
Mhm.
expectations But sometimes it's not even worrying about the other people. Sometimes it's about nostalgia. Even the good things that don't serve you sometimes make you feel safe in a way, even though it might not be in an overall sense. So people won't necessarily drop their belief systems for that. So again, this is all about defining that balance. It's not as easy as, oh, okay, I realize that's not true for me anymore, and then you just drop everything
Oh no,
So
it takes time.
it takes time, yeah.
And fear. I mean, fear is a big thing, right? What if because people are scared to lose their support system, to lose, what if my parents will decide that they don't want to be in contact
disown
with
you, yeah.
right? And that's a
that
big
happens
fear too. And absolutely does. But then it is finding the strength within yourself. But that is part of why we're all here.
Yeah.
Right? We're all, it's part of why we're here to kind of go
experience
through
it and figure it out.
Experience it, yes, and not allow the fear to take over. Yeah. Right? It has its function. The fear of the gun that's created by the conscious mind, it has its function. Yeah. But I feel like partially, I believe that fear is there to teach us to actually look at things that brings us fear or we're fearful of and work through that. It's like a trigger, right? You could be triggered by another person that's in your family, that they say something and you go, nuts over whatever they said, right? Because it created that emotion. So look into that emotion. But fear is also an emotion. So what's underneath it, right? Because fear is a surface emotion. What's underneath? Right? And you will learn so much about yourself. And I'm finding that a lot of us are not in tune with our own emotions. We're not even able to name them. Right? But that's kind of the next step of learning, okay, well, what can it be? You can write it down. I know we're kind of veering off the topic of polarities.
There's so many interesting things to branch out of. Yeah.
And I just want to say, this is not sponsored by...
Oh my gosh, I have this too.
We're not being sponsored. But, but we're always looking for a sponsor, just saying.
Hint, hint. I think we need to phase this out now. No, gonna bleep it out.
I'm gonna turn it around. There you go. Until we get sponsorship.
Hint.
In Starbucks, hint, hint. And don't forget to, like and subscribe. There you go. I just pushed the like button. I just put it right in. I'm just gonna put everything in. Let's see.
Yeah. Well, knowing that we tend to go off tangents, we've had a good conversation about this. We'd love to know what you guys think after we shared our perception here. There is so much polarities out there, but they can divide us, but it can unite us in the end. But first, we have to unite ourselves with ourselves. Like, we have to know what really makes us tick. And if you feel anything that's not a happy feeling, or actually knowing a happy feeling is good too, because then you'll know you want to align more with it. But anything that makes you uncomfortable, triggers, they are great signals for us on how to understand how to balance our polarities. So we'll bring it together like that. Well, yeah. Balancing our polarities is one of the challenging things that we're here to do, but we're up for it. All of you, all of us, constantly working on it. So anything you all think about that, please share.
Yes, and especially I want to hear if there was a belief that you grew up with, right, and you thought that it was the truth, right, for most of your life, or maybe not most, but at some point you were like, no, I'm switching, this is not working for me, right? And go ahead.
Or if you have something that, just with our conversation, thinking about something that you currently think is 100%, 200% true, how else can you think about it right now? Like, not to discourage that truth, but like how else can you expand it? So if you have something like that, we'd love to know about it too.
Yes. And I just want to put it, the end of it is that, you know, when we look at it at the end, none of us know the truth. None of us will ever know the truth. The truth is always different for each one of us. And the only thing that we can do is just accept it and be open to other people's truths, right? Because we don't have to fight over that my truth is the only truth. You have your truth, I have my truth, and we can agree to disagree and still be very respectful towards each other. I quickly I'll tell you I'm Jewish by faith, and I remember I had a conversation with this very nice Muslim man, and I loved how he presented himself because I mirrored that. I mirror a lot. So I mirrored that very much because he was like, well, we're not fighting, right? We're just conversating. So this is my side and I believe it's true and I respect your side because I know you believe it's true. And I was like, I mean, I have nothing but respect for other cultures and other religions. I'm not really religious anymore, but um there's still respect. We can still respect each other. We can still respect each other's beliefs, right? There is no need to prove that your belief is the only right one, right? You can just respect, agree to disagree, and peacefully, peacefully go each your way. That's all I'm gonna say.
To add on to that really quickly though, we've done Sophia and I do channelings together, and oftentimes we'll get messages that align, and this is one of the things that they said to us is that if we ever get into a conversation where someone is like so adamant on their truth and they want to like make you understand it, instead of fighting back, there's no fighting back. You just say, I respect your exactly what this Muslim man did for you. Just say that I respect your truth. Mine is different. If you're going to continue wanting to adjust my way of thinking, then I think we need to finish. We need to move on, and because otherwise it's the control thing. You're trying to make someone else believe, you're trying to prove, and there's no point in us responding to that. So I would say, as advice to others, is that if you ever get approached by someone who's really adamant and it's against your own beliefs, just say, I respectfully don't agree, but it's okay. I respect you and your belief as you are. I think we just need to move on and not talk about this topic because there's no proving to each other. Then we just start losing the love. We lose the love for one another. So I think that was great advice. So I wanted to put that in there at the.
Yeah. And I hope we'll get to put at least a few channelings into this clips, and little clips into this episode.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, so that's the end of this episode. Yay. Yay, number 2. 2 official. Next topic. What is our next topic, Sophia?
I already forgot. What's our topic and our next topic? I'm trying to remember what it was.
It is about
oh my god. And I guess enlightenment would be it. Or awakening. Right?
Awakening process. Right.
Spiritual awakening, yes.
Yes.
Spiritual awakening. That's a big one too, because a lot of people have been going through that. And I'm excited. I'm already ready to talk about it. So
I know, right.
we'll wait
it is in itself is very divisive. It seems you would think that in spiritual sense, everybody's like, oh yeah, of course, yeah. But I think, it'll be very interesting to talk about, because I don't feel like we're all very united sometimes when we talk about our awareness and our awakening, and our people want to know, again, trying to find their truths, but we need to address that. But we'll do that next time.
Yep. We'll see you next time, guys. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. Yeah.
See you all
Bye.
soon. Bye bye.